Three, two, oh, we are live. Awesome. Woo! It is Tuesday evening. We're live. We're going to take a moment to go ahead and share this. I'm going to make it public so any and all folks can see and get this great information. There we go. All right, so that's public. And all right, we are good to go. So I want to take this time to introduce our guest today, Miss Sasha Willis. She is with us and she is going to be speaking with us about how women can win in business. So we are typically doing small business solutions on Mondays, but we are shifting to Tuesday. We're going to try something new this week. I am super excited about the guest today because she does all the things that I aspire to do when I am a wife, when I am a mother. Sasha somehow balances it all. She has a podcast, she has a creative business, and she is still doing her motherly duties like as we speak. So right before we jumped online, she was kind of giving me a little gist of her routine. But without further ado, I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you all what she does.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, yes, I am Sasha Willis. I am owner of Creations by Sasha, which is a lifestyle brand. And I do have an online product shop. So, I make all mugs, like tote bags, apparel, all sorts of stuff. It's geared towards women like myself who love coffee, wine, and
Ooh.
who are trying to do a lot of things. On top of my business, I do have a full-time job. I also am fully employed.
Wow.
Yeah. I have a full-time job. I have the Swirl and Sip Podcast, which myself and a friend of I, we do it together. We are on season 2 of that. So we started that in January. And right now, season 2 ends in February. So we're in the middle of recording season 2. And then, yeah, I am a mom to a recently turned 3-year-old little boy.
Yes.
And I am a wife to my, I guess, high school sweetheart. I don't really
Oh,
refer to him as that, but him and we've been together for 17 years, married for 4.
that is so
Um,
beautiful. Love it.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of, I know you're talking about schedule, a lot of, the evenings are a little bit challenging for me because my husband, he is a police officer and he works in the evenings. And so at night, it's just my son and I most of the time. And we
Wow.
have to do our mommy son routine every night.
I love that. So you are honestly like this is the epitome of a hardworking like she's not just a mom, she's not just a wife, she's a business owner as well. And then what I didn't know is you work full time.
Yeah.
So I have zero excuses moving forward, none at all. You just showed me up tonight, Sasha. So can you kind of tell us like how you got started and how you decided to take that step out and say, although I have a young child and I'm a wife, and he works at night, what pushed you to like step out on faith and start your business?
So I actually started my business way before I ever thought of my son. I've had my business for about 10 years, and it's gone through a lot of changes. When I first started my business, I weirdly focused on stationery, but like scrapbooking. I was really into scrapbooking, and I thought that especially nowadays, we have folks. Everybody has these digital pictures, and nobody puts them in like books anymore.
Yes.
And so I wanted to create that for people who either weren't creative or
Wow.
just didn't have the time to do it. So I started with that. And then that transitioned into me doing actual stationery because I was really into hosting parties and I really love a good theme. And so I would go all out with my themes. So that turned into me doing like invitations, and then like event styling, which is the decor around events, not the planning, because they're different. I didn't do any of the planning.
Okay.
And pretty much right up until I was pregnant, my business was stationery and event design. Primarily focused on stationery. I did a lot of wedding stationery. And then when I got pregnant, I knew I couldn't do the styling piece of it anymore because physically it just wasn't going to happen. And I knew once my son was born, I wouldn't have the time really to do that. So I kept up with the stationery up until about actually January of this year is
Wow.
when I made the change in my business to move more towards a lifestyle brand because I needed my business to work for me. I like
Yes.
if you're in the wedding industry, at any level, even doing stationery, it can be stressful because a lot of things are last minute. Like brides will give you like changes on Thursday for a wedding that's on, Sunday or Saturday, and you have
Yes.
to get it printed and get it delivered. Like, and I just didn't have the time. At the time I was still going into the office. So I was coming home. It was my son and I from 5 to 7 p.m. until he went to sleep. And then I was staying up until like 10 or 11 working on stationery. And I just was like, I don't want to do this
Wow.
anymore. So I changed my business into a lifestyle brand. I was already selling products online anyway. And I
Nice.
just decided to focus on that. And I actually like it a lot more because it gives me way more freedom in my business to talk about things that I couldn't really do before, just because of the type of clients I was trying to get. You kind of have to like be a little bit more, I guess, PC. So I now like don't censor myself. I don't censor my opinions or what I
Yes.
think about anything that's going on. And so, but I knew I always wanted to have well, I take it back. I didn't think I wanted to have a business. I went to school for business. I actually have my MPA. I don't have an MBA,
Okay.
but I have an undergrad in business management.
Yes.
But I didn't want to focus on entrepreneurship because I was just like, I know I'm going to have a government job and I won't need to have my own business. But I found that my day job is very reports and analytical and that type of stuff. And
Nice.
I'm by nature a more creative person. And so I just wanted an outlet for that.
That is amazing. I love the fact that you like basically like stepped outside of your everyday routine and was like, I want to do something that allows me to show my personality. That's it's very similar to me. Like I'm in the military. We talked about that, but this is like my escape. I love to do and connect with business minded individuals, and that's two different fields.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you said is you get to express yourself. So how do you do that, and how does it show up in your work?
Yeah, so before when I was mainly focused on weddings, the wedding industry in general, there's not a lot of creatives or vendors that are people of color.
Ah, yes.
And the people who are spending a lot of money tend to be white people. And so like you feel like you had to toe a certain line in order to not, to get those clients who were, paying the big money for paper goods. Like I'm doing invitations. And
Interesting.
so, how do you justify spending thousands of dollars on an invitation? You want to make sure that you're nice and friendly and you're non-controversial. But once I was able to, kind of do my lifestyle brand, I talked a lot about, especially this year, with everything going on with all of the social issues. Like I said, my husband's a police officer, but he's also a Black police officer, and I am raising a little Afro Latino boy, and all of
Wow.
those issues hit very close to home for me.
Exactly, very.
Yeah, and when my husband takes off his uniform, he's still a Black man. Like, he's first
Absolutely.
and foremost a Black man. And I'm a Puerto Rican woman, and I am unapologetically Puerto Rican. I love being
Love
Puerto
that.
Rican. I literally have a shirt that I sell that says Latina AF. So, because that's my
Oh,
like all of my products, like a lot of them have cursing and things like that. And so I didn't like the freedom to be able to express those opinions. I thought might turn some people off, but actually I ended up getting a lot of new followers, a lot of people who started engaging with me on Instagram, a lot of opportunities like this to speak about, these things that I thought were important, because, it does affect my life. And I think when people see
exactly.
the person behind the business and the brand, it creates that connection, because there are other women just like me who are worried about their sons, who are worried about their children, who are worried about their spouses. And, we're all kind of dealing with it in different ways. But what I'm talking about isn't brand new for a lot of people.
Exactly.
And I don't have to now censor that to worry about if I might book a client.
I love that. And quite honestly, isn't creating a business creating your own world, right? As an entrepreneur, you didn't decide to do your business venture to work for anybody else or to adhere to anyone else's policy. So I think you are a true epitome of what entrepreneurs should be doing. And I say that, but that is the truth. There are so many business owners, and I always bring it back home, because if you say something that hits home, I'm going to share it. At some point, I worried about so much what everybody else wanted to see. And that's what you want. You want to get money, right? You want,
Mhm.
where is the money going to be spent? Like you said originally, money is most spent with Caucasians, right? So you
Mhm.
tone down and water down your message. And even me speaking right now, I don't know who's watching, and us talking about this could make someone be turned off, but this is my platform
Mhm.
and we're going to talk about it. So
Yeah.
you changed your messaging because there are people like you. I'm already thinking about, like, hey, in my mind, does she make a shirt like this, chocolate AF? Because I need a shirt like that. That's so cool to be proud of who you are. And you taking a stand, a a visual stand for your black husband as a police officer, for your Latino mixed son. He has the best of both worlds, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I think that's amazing.
And
And
I think what people forget in business is that, we want to, when we first start out in business, we want to appeal to everyone. We want everyone to like buy from us
likership.
or sell from
Mhm.
us, or, buy our things, when really there's an audience for everyone.
Yes.
I follow someone who is a product maker as well, who's very Christian heavy and very, and I'm not super religious. I do believe in God, but all of her products are like that. And she has a huge following. And I can look at that and say, like, oh, I want to be like that. Like, her products sell so quickly, like whenever she does launches. But that's her, and that's her brand and her business. And she has a circle for that. And I have a circle for people who don't mind cursing, and who like, who are proud of being like Spanish, or proud of their melanin, and proud of like all of the color that they bring. Like, I make no apologies for being a Spanish woman. I think it adds
I love
vibrancy
that.
to my life, and it adds vibrancy to everything that I do. And so I want that to be reflected in my brand and in my business, because that's me. Like, that's who I am. And I know that there are other Latinos like me and Latinas who are going to be attracted to that. And there are other people of color who are going to say yes, because we're going to support all people of color no matter what you do. So I know that
Yes.
there's people out there who that resonates with.
Absolutely. And it screams to me confidence. You're self-aware of who you are, and you're like, hey, and I don't see enough what helps me express that, so I'm going to create it. And I
Yeah.
think that's awesome. So you have your podcast too. And here's
Yes.
another thing. Here's another thing. We're having an interview right now, but I want you to talk about your podcast here. What do you talk about in your podcast? Tell us.
So the Swirl and Sip podcast started as essentially an extension of my lifestyle brand. I I I have a wine night circle. It's me and three other girls, and we all have, three of us have 3-year-old boys, and then
Nice.
two of them have 10-year-old daughters. And so we started drinking about 3 years ago. We started having a monthly wine night, and where we would just all get together and talk about being moms, being women, like all of the things that were just affecting us in our life.
Beautiful.
And so one of my wine night girls and I decided, you know what, we have these conversations anyway. Why don't we do it on a podcast? And so in the podcast, because we love wine, we try a new bottle of wine every episode. We talk about
Ooh,
it and what we think about it.
nice.
We always say it has to be at least 13.5% in order for it to be CASA and Sheree approved, because my mother-in-law taught me that if it's not at least that, it's not worth drinking.
It's not even
Um,
worth it.
yeah, it's not worth the calories. And so we talk about wine, and then we just talk about like things that we deal with. So, I mean, we've had
Nice.
episodes, everything from like having self-care as a woman in general, but especially as a mom and then as a wife, finding that time from ourselves. We talked about like what it is to, be a person of color, a woman of color in this country,
Awesome.
how to stay healthy, how we try to stay fit, like body issues that you have
Yes.
after having kids, or like the idea that moms have to look a certain way or act a certain way. We don't really
Beautiful.
subscribe to any of that. So we kind of talk about,
Wow.
it's not only for moms or married people. It's, if you're in a relationship, if you're single, if you have kids, if you don't have kids, like we just talk about what it is to be a woman in this country. And like I call it modern womanhood, and trying
Yes.
to do all of the things and what that looks like.
I love it. I'm a huge fan of just like woman empowerment and just like, that whole concept. And I'm curious to hear your perspective. That concept of the mom should just, or I'm sorry, women should just be moms. They should just be wives, and that's it. Be stay
No.
at home and take care of the house. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So I say that if that is what works for you, then
Cool.
cool. My personal view on it is, and I said this when I was pregnant, I said it before I had my son, I don't want to be considered just a mom. My
Yes.
son obviously is a huge blessing in my life and probably the greatest thing I'll ever do. But I was a woman outside of him. I was a person before he was here. And 18 years from now, when he's left the house, I'm going to be a person outside of that as well. And so I don't like the idea that as soon as you become a mom, that's all the world sees you as.
Right.
Like, it's a huge job, but I do other things, and I want my son, especially my son, and to know that it's okay for women to be like that, to see women can have careers and have jobs and still be good moms and good wives while
Yes.
doing things that fulfill them.
Wow, that is so inspiring. Again, so I think I need to tune into your podcast for the future to get my mindset for the future because yeah, that is a huge like potential scare for a lot of women, right? So before you became a mother, before you became a wife, did you have those fears like how will life change for me when I do transition over, or did you embrace it? What?
I mean, my husband and I have been together for so long. I was never worried about what being his wife would mean. I think he knew the type of woman he was marrying. I mean, I had my business way before we were even married. And
Yes,
so he knew, the job I had and what did I wanted to do. And he's very supportive
love
of all
that.
of that. He doesn't try to say, no, don't do that. Sometimes he'll even offer up ideas. I think you should try it this way, or maybe have you thought about
Awesome.
this? When I was becoming a mom, I wasn't so much nervous about it. I just knew how other people would view me, and so I just make the conscious effort. It is a part of my brand. Of course, I am
Yes,
a mom, but I don't say that that's the first thing about me. I like, if you look at what my bio is on Instagram, it says shop owner, podcaster, speaker, boy mom. Like, that's,
love that.
because he is in that, but
Yeah.
he's not the top of that. He makes up, he's a facet of my life. And of course, he helps bring fullness and wholeness to my life, but he is not all of it. And I think a lot of women feel that way, but are don't like to say that
Afraid to
because,
say it.
yeah.
Because they're worried about how it's perceived. No, I get
Yeah.
what you're saying. What you're saying is there are so many layers to Sasha. Like I have this layer, I have this layer, but when you put all those layers together, if you were to remove one of those layers, right, your son or your podcast, you wouldn't be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I get that. That's cool. So how long have you been doing your business? I think I missed that part.
I've had it for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but like I said, it's gone through a lot of transitions, and so the current iteration of my business has been within the last year.
Cool. And that's a part of it. Businesses change, you get different ideas. So
And I
but
think it's important for people to know that, because sometimes we start our business one way and we think that it has to stay that way. But my business changed with the stages of my life, and it's
absolutely.
okay for you to change your business and make it work for you, because, like you said, that's what it's supposed to do. It's your business. So if one
Yes.
piece isn't working for you anymore, it's okay to pivot and change it to something else.
Yes, pivot is the word for 2020 and
Exactly.
beyond. And I think it's almost impossible. And I think, you know, you said it best, as you grow and as you change, because your mindset is changing, you're gaining more
Mhm.
experience, more knowledge, and I'm sure your creatives are getting better a long time. You're probably like, hey, I didn't even know I was good at this. Let me add this to the list. So
I mean, I was 24 when I started my business, and I'm now 34. So, like, even like, you're not the same person in your 20s as you are in your 30s. So you shouldn't expect a business to be like that either.
exactly, I agree. So in a mix of everything that you're doing, what are you working on now? What is your current focus, and what are you working towards, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so my business, like I said, right now, it's mainly focused on being a lifestyle brand and creating new products. So
Nice.
I try to have a couple of new product releases at least 2 to 3 times a year.
Cool.
So a lot of my time is spent doing, coming up with ideas. What do I want to see on a shirt? What do I want to see on a mug? I do all of that. A lot of it is spent like just email marketing. And then, because the lifestyle piece of it, I actually probably, like, I like the freedom of being able to talk about what I want, but content curation is actually so hard for me, because generally speaking, I'm a pretty private person.
Ooh, I get that
So,
too.
so trying to like come up with things to post and what do I want to talk about, that's the challenging part of my business. Um, but I think, merging my business with the podcast is probably what I'm doing a lot of. We
Nice.
want the podcast to be, and my own brand as well, a community, where women essentially can feel like it's a safe space, and where we can talk about the things that affect women and how the world is viewing us and how we're affected by the world. And we're hoping that sometime, hopefully next year, maybe later in the year, we would start having events around our podcast and do kind of live recordings and things like that.
Nice.
But that's kind of like where the trajectory of the business is going. I do want to create a community because I think that does help. It helps build your business, but it also helps you find the people that you resonate most with.
Yes.
And I want people, when they come to my Instagram or come to my website, to feel like they know me and to feel like, oh, I this aspect of her life I can see in myself, and that really
Yes.
resonates with me. Because then they'll go to the shop and say, oh, like, what does she have? And so
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's going to be something that they like because you've already built that connection. You already have
exactly.
similarities. Yes, I think that's great that you're actually taking that time to do that level of research to build a connection with the people that you want to do business with, and that makes a huge difference.
Hmm.
I was doing a bit of research, and like Nike. So Nike, they're very known for developing a community with inside their organization. If anyone goes there and they do an interview with an employee, they will tell you the vision, they'll tell you what they're working on, how they fit into the pie. And I just think that when you build that connection, your business has meaning and purpose behind it.
Exactly. Well, and especially nowadays, because everybody wants to see who is behind this business. And
Exactly.
and it's even to the point now, well, does that person's values align with mine? Does what they believe in align with what I do? And so I want people to, if you feel like Black Lives Matter and you're down for not keeping kids in cages, then like I'm probably your person. Like, that, because I talk about those things. But if you get uncomfortable with someone talking about those things, I'm probably not your person.
Probably
So
not
it's
your
like
person.
exactly. And so I think being open and honest about what I believe in allows me to attract people who would like the things that I'm putting out anyway. I think people like seeing authenticness in business, and not always sugar coated and perfect. Like I don't hide that I have a kid who's right now rolling on the floor. Like,
That I love. I love
he's
that.
he's here. Like it's showing all of that goes into what this business is.
Yeah, and I was like, "Hey, this is original content right here. You are exemplifying what you stand for, right? You're like, "Hey, my son is right here and I'm doing this interview right now." So, how do you balance? You said something that stood out to me. How do you balance with being a private person and still showing up for your business?
Yeah. I try to so I don't post a lot about my husband, although I do talk about him a lot because he is a private person. And so I like speak about our relationship in general terms. I never get into like the nitty-gritty about us because that's our business, and I respect his right to privacy. Just because I am trying to have a business on Instagram, that's not what he wants, and so I don't put that out there. The same with my son. If you ever peruse my Instagram, you will not really see his face, because I don't. I think I feel bad for kids nowadays who essentially from when they're born, they're immediately on social media, and they don't have that choice.
They
And
don't have
so
an
I,
option. Yeah.
yeah, and so I want at the very least for him to get old enough to say, no, mommy, like put me, like I want to see my picture on there. And like when
Oh,
he's old enough to make that choice, then I'll start showing his face. So I show like his head and like his hands, like the back of him a lot. But I try to keep, his face a little private. But I mean, and that's really what it is. Like I talk about things that affect me. I talk about what affects like my view of my family and how I feel. But
wow.
I do try to keep my husband's thoughts or things that go on between my husband and I, or family things, pretty kind of close. We do open up a little bit on the podcast. Like on the podcast, we definitely talk more about like his feelings and thoughts about things. But I do try to respect, that, and we're both private people, so I don't want anyone kind of commenting on our personal life anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I get that, and especially, like, with society now, like, everything is I hate to say it, but a lot of people are very judgmental about stuff, and keeping that precious part of your life is, I think that's awesome.
yeah,
You have control of that piece, so
exactly.
cool. So what challenges have you faced with business? If you were to give advice to like upcoming entrepreneurs, I actually just met this young lady. She is stepping into the creative. She's going into wood art.
Mm.
She's younger. She's about in her 20s, I believe 26. What advice would you give like someone like that that's like stepping out in their business and putting their ideas in front of other people's eyes? What,
So I would say two things actually. One, your friends and family most likely are not your people. Like they will support you with words, but probably not with money. So never look for your friend and
yeah.
family circle to validate what your business is. That they're not going to do it. They'll be the first ones. Oh, can I get a discount? And can you just make this for me? Like real friends are always willing to pay full price. And that goes into the
Yes.
second thing, especially when you are working in the creative field. We have such a tendency to minimize what our products are worth, and it does the entire industry a disservice.
Ooh,
As someone who did stationery, like I see people on Etsy all the time selling foil pressed wedding invitations for $1.25 each, and you are making literally no money if you're doing that.
absolutely.
It's okay to have a hobby, but the minute you try to make it a business and you want to charge those things, you have to think outside of your own business. And by like lowballing the market, you're bringing the market down. And people will say, "Oh, like you're I can't charge this much because all these other people are charging lower," and that's not true. Like charge. Think about your time, think about your product costs, think about all of that and price yourself
Yes.
accordingly. Because when you break down the numbers and you're like, oh, it took me 3 hours to make this piece of woodwork, but the wood was 250, you're like, oh, me making $100 is, oh, that's, I made money. No, you didn't, because you're paying yourself absolutely nothing. Like you're not going to
Nothing.
be able to live off of that at all, especially if you want to turn it into something bigger and go full time.
Yes.
It's not, I'm not trying to make my business full time. So I don't really consider, like, I don't worry about that, but I make sure that I price my things the way that they should be priced to take into account all of the expenses I have. And anything that you're doing creatively, just always research your pricing. Don't base it off of, oh, I've seen 4 or 5 people that they charge this much. That's irrelevant to what you are doing. It
Yes.
should be based on your cost, your time, how much money you want to make, because there's always an audience that is going to buy your level, like your product, at a certain price point. Like there's a reason why we have like Mercedes and like Hondas. Like they're both
Absolutely.
cars, but they're priced for two different markets, and they're almost the same cars. Like you, I mean,
Almost.
yeah. So it's not really that, there's very little that differentiates them, like, broadly speaking. So don't worry about feeling like you're gonna price people out. Like just focus on your craft and what your costs are and what you want to get paid, and you will find people to pay for it.
Yes, and there's power in pricing. And I love that you mentioned that. And the one thing that you touched on that many people overlook when they're determining their price is their time. It's not just the amount that you spend on your resources, not the amount you spent on the plastic, the wrapping. It's your time. Like how long did it take you to do that? Did you stay up 10 hours? Did you do another 10 hours? Don't pay yourself.
Yes.
Please pay yourself. You do not work for free.
And there's so many people, especially women, who are just so, they want to be nice, and they want
Yes.
to, oh, I feel bad because people can't afford my services. If you are running a business, the number one criteria for a business is to make a profit. If you are not trying to do that, then you have a hobby or you have a nonprofit. Like you don't have a business. It's fine to, be empathetic and want to help your customers and, want to be nice. That's fine. But ultimately, the goal of any business is to earn money. And that
Yes.
should be what you're focusing on.
I agree with you 100%. No, that is like I think that is probably one of the top three advice that you could give anybody going to entrepreneurship, because you can have the idea, you can have the clients, but if you're not making the money, it means absolutely nothing.
And it just leads to burnout. You'll
It
hate what
does.
you're doing and you'll feel overworked and you're like, I've made 50 wood signs and I have $3, and why am I doing all of this? Like it's
Exactly.
okay to sell, 5 wood signs as opposed to 50 if you're making more money doing it.
Yes, absolutely. I love that, because it's definitely not about the quantity. It's about
No.
the profit.
Yes.
That is awesome. So where do you see yourself in 5 years with this business? You say you weren't
So
trying to go full time. That's
I'm
actually a
not.
new thing.
I'm not.
I like that. Okay.
I have a very stable um I have a very stable day job that pays me very well. My hope is that it will. Right now, we're working at home due to COVID, and so I'm hoping that that will turn permanent.
Okay.
And my business for me is in 5 years, I would like it to be bigger in the sense that I am selling more products and have a bigger community, but um I'm not, my goal is not to make it full time because I don't want the stress of what it means to have a 6-figure business at this point in my life.
It's
My
fun. I hate to wish this on you. However, from my research again, it's always the person that said they didn't plan on going full time, and the next thing you know, they have like this whole staff thing going, and they got a factory. You'll be the person that's opening doors. Like,
And
I never.
if that happens, like I'm always open to it, but it's not in my plan. Like I'm doing my business so that way I can have the lifestyle that I want to have, and
Nice,
it affords me, affords my family a little bit extra spending money, and we can take
cool.
more trips. And when I retire from my day job, like I'll have that to do. Like I won't have to feel bored or anything like that. But I just, like, my son is 3, and so
Yeah,
if it goes full time, it would be when he's much older and I have the time necessary to devote to all of that. But I like creating product. I like talking about what I'm talking about. I like building that community, and so I hope that that piece of my business grows. And that's what I'm working towards. It's really just to build a community around my business, where I can have real conversations with women and talk about real things that affect us and make products that women love.
love
I would
that.
love to see them in stores at some point. So
Nice.
that's probably a goal of mine, but
That's awesome. That's a
but
great goal.
not full time. I know you don't hear a lot of entrepreneurs say that. Like, oh, I want to quit my job and I'm trying to, get rid of 9 to 5. And that also does not have to be your goal with entrepreneurship. Like it's okay to have, and I always say what I do is just because you have a full-time job, um, and you don't plan on leaving it, that doesn't mean my business is a side hustle, because it's not. My business is actually a business. Like it's not something that I'm doing on the side hoping to make a little money. Like it's actually a business and I have a full-time job. Like there is a difference.
Absolutely. I just think you're super clear. I love this perspective. And again, like all the guests that come on here, there's always something unique about each of them. And you're unique in all the things that you're balancing, while I throw on top, while being a mom, while being a wife. And then you said, hey, this is not something I want to do full time, but it's actually a legitimate business. I am putting in the hours, and it's quality. So
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. You have your own perspective in mind. Like, that's awesome. Cool. Well, it's been a true pleasure, guys. I just want to let you know, Sasha has so much personality, and it was not hard to develop questions on this interview. It's just like flows. I was just actually more intrigued on, like, hey, what do you think about this? So I appreciate you bringing your wisdom and your experience on here, especially for women out there that are mothers, that are married, that maybe getting ready to step into that chapter of their life, and they are thinking about entrepreneurship, or they're currently doing it. It can be done. Sasha
Mhm.
is an example of it can be done, and you don't look stressed out. There are probably stressful times, because running a business is, it's a lot of work, but you seem like you're managing it very well.
Yeah, I am a firm believer. I my dad passed away. It'll be 10 years this year, and it was very
Okay.
unexpected. And because of his passing, there's not much that stresses me out. I'm just very much, I control what I can, and I don't let anything else that I can't control bother me because if I can't control it, there's no use to me worrying about it. And so I focus on the things that I like to do that make me happy, that make my family and I happy, and that's what I do. And so, outside of that, I don't let anything stress me out. Of course, like I get stressed, but in the broader picture, I don't really let things stress me out. I like what I do. Like I
That's
said, I like what I
awesome.
do. I like the business that I have. I like my full-time job, like my family and friends. That's what's important to me. And so if anything, and I'll say this even about my business, if at some point it becomes too stressful and I don't like it anymore, I'll scale it back, I'll pivot, I'll do something else so that I like it again, because
Yes.
it's meant to work for me. I don't want to ever do anything in my life that I don't enjoy.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great perspective again. That's kind of like the same situation I have when people ask me about the military, am I going to stay in? And yes, because I'm motivated. But the moment you lose motivation in what you're doing, it is best for everybody that you
Yeah.
shift.
Yep.
So that's awesome. Wow. I absolutely love the fact that you are going about in a stress-free way, because entrepreneurship is something else. And when you see people who are, you know, calm and stable, that is amazing. I love it. Cool.
There's definitely stresses in business. I've wasted a lot of money and I spent a lot of money doing things
It
that I
comes with
probably should
it.
have thought about more before I did them. So you can't be. It's not for the faint of heart, but you
No.
have to just if it's something you want to do, just push through and figure out how to do it. But make sure that you're charging accordingly.
Yes, yes. Make your money, honey. So is there anything else you want to say to the audience tonight?
No, I thank you for having me on. I hope that they'll check me out on Instagram. I'm at creations underscore by underscore Sasha. You can find the podcast. It's on pretty much all of the major podcast platforms. It's the Swirl and Sip Podcast at Swirl and Sip Podcast on Instagram as well. My website is creationsbysasha.com. And then I just hope that, hop on a post and let me know your thoughts about things. I love talking to people and seeing people's perspectives about things. I think I'm probably a little bit much to handle for some people.
No, I
Uh,
love it.
but I want women especially to just be confident in what we bring to the table as females. I think, that I think women, we have this idea, we're supposed to be able to do all of the things, and
Right.
we should be able to do everything, and I do believe that, but I don't think we can do it all at once. And so, at any given time, my family might outweigh my business. Being a wife might outweigh being a mom at that moment,
Absolutely.
and so I'm always balancing. It's never a balance. There's always one thing that's going to take precedence at any given moment. And I
Exactly.
think it's important for women to remember that that's okay. Like, we literally can't pull ourselves thin trying to be everything to everyone.
Yes.
We have to
Whew.
focus on different parts of our life at different times. So that's all.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. Again, if you want to reach out to Sasha, Creations by Sasha on Instagram, and she has her Sip and
Swirl and Sip.
Swirl and Sip podcast that she hosts on what day and night?
So it comes out every Wednesday. It's
Every Wednesday.
it's not live. We do record it, but it's every Wednesday on all the podcast platforms. It's out, like, literally it releases at like 2 a.m.
Beautiful.
So we call them Wine Wednesdays. You can also join us every other Friday. So Friday after Thanksgiving, we do Friday wine downs on Instagram, where we have like,
Nice.
my co-host and I just have a conversation about whatever topic we're talking about. So yeah, that's every other Friday. But yeah.
That's beautiful. So, ladies, tune in, tune in. I think there's going to be a lot of good information, inspiration, and just like different ideas on how to like do the balancing act with everything. So again, Sasha, it's been great having you on here. I'm super thankful that you decided to be a guest. And I
Thank you.
personally learned a lot of things in a short conversation. So I know that the listeners will definitely benefit from this.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes. All right, guys. So this is another week of Small Business Solutions. This is for entrepreneurs. This is for people who are thinking about it. I'm more than certain if you listen to any of these videos, you will find a solution to any of your problems. So have a great night.
Thank you.